So 2 months ago, groups of young Palestinians waited at the bus stops. And the settlers that were there got very nervous, and they called ahead. Everybody has cell phones now, right? Which wasn't the case back in the 60s, of course. They radioed ahead, and in some cases, the drivers didn't stop at all. In some cases, soldiers were brought to prevent them physically from getting on. In other cases, 3 or 4 managed to get onto a bus, and they were then beaten up and thrown off the bus. And they have sworn to go back, just like the Freedom Riders of the United States. So this history, and especially in a place like Detroit, which was the home to many of the Freedom Riders. Viola Liuzzo, who was not a student, but was a Detroit mother, an ordinary person, who went south to help the Freedom Riders, was driving back to the airport after driving some of the Freedom Riders to where they were staying, and she was caught by a carload of Klan people and shot and killed on the roads in Mississippi. She was from Detroit. So Detroit has an extraordinary history in this struggle, and this struggle has become a global struggle. For all the reasons that Martin Luther King gets the Nobel Prize, Martin Luther King is held up around the world as a model and as a strategist, not only because it was nonviolent, that was part of it, but that wasn't the whole point. The point was it was resistance. It wasn't just about being nonviolent. That's, when you all learn about Martin Luther King, the only speech you ever hear about is, "I have a dream." The only thing you ever hear about him is he was nonviolent, right? But King was way more than that. He was way more than that. And one of the things he was strategic. He understood the need to build long-term movements. His most important speech, I would argue, was not "I Have a Dream," but was his Riverside Church speech given a year to the day before he was killed, before he was assassinated, when he talked about the need to link the struggle against war with the struggle for civil rights and against racism and the struggle against poverty. That was, I think, the most important of his speeches. And those are the speeches that have been taken up by young Palestinians. So one of the things that I think is so important for us, and I'm just going to talk for another minute because I want to open this up for more discussion, is that we need to have a multiplicity of targets, whether it's a corporation. The issue of U.S. military aid to Israel is a great target for a place like Detroit, where people are hurting because they can't get jobs, they can't get money to refinance their house. They're losing their home, they're losing their job, they're losing their access to education. The schools are falling apart. Why? Well, it's not only because of $30 billion aid to Israel, but that's a big chunk. That can be a great starting point for a campaign to say, we, the City Council of Detroit, we, the State Assembly of Michigan, do not want our tax money used for these illegal purposes, to support illegal actions. So when you think about a BDS campaign, what's key is not the immediate, there's a company that's selling some Israeli product, let's boycott it. I mean, that can be exciting and fun, but to have really lasting impact, you need to see that in the context of who are we going to reach? Who are the targets? Who are the people that we're trying to educate with this campaign who don't know about all this? We need a long-term goal. We need to be able to link the campus and the community work. We need to use that analogy of the anti-apartheid movement globally that focused on divestment. Then it was divesting from banks that were enabling apartheid in South Africa. Later it was corporations that were investing in apartheid South Africa. And at a certain point, the corporations decided it wasn't worth it to their bottom line. Corporations, as you all know, are driven by profit. And when it becomes more expensive for them to engage, to continue their sales to Israel than to end those sales, then we will start seeing that kind of impact. When Caterpillar, which at the end of the day, the amount they sell to Israel, it's, as my grandmother used to say, it's bupkis. It's nothing. You know, it's nothing. They could give it up in a minute and it wouldn't change their bottom line at all. But they don't want to feel pressured to take a political stance, right? You can be damn sure that the day that their counters, their bean counters, decide that it's just costing too much, they're having to spend too much time doing PR, too much time on damage control, that it's not worth it, they will end those sales of D9 bulldozers ready to be armored. So our job is to make it unacceptable for them to become a symbol not of all American farm families, but of support for illegal occupation, militarism, human rights violations. That's the job of a BDS campaign. And that's why it can go on for years. When a new crop of students is here, they're still working with the community groups that have been around for so long. That's why it's important that coalitions like the group that I work with, the U.S. Campaign to End the Israeli Occupation, endtheoccupation.org, easy website, has almost 400 member groups now, all across the country, because it's been going on for 10 years, and this is the way of pulling people together, sharing resources, figuring out how to make a national voice out of all of these independent campaigns going on campuses and in communities all around the country. So this is about education. It's about using the tactics and the strategies of nonviolent economic pressure. It's about education, education, education. And it's about remembering that we're no longer the minority fringe out there saying something that is so crazy that nobody can hear us. I'll leave you with this. And this, I think, is really important when we think about how we do our work, that this is not some fringe campaign that we have to struggle to get in the room. Mainstream public opinion is close to catching up to us. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing that we're going mainstream, because we haven't changed our principles. What's changed is the willingness of mainstream thinking to catch up. And that's why some of these organizations that support Israeli violations no matter what, that support Israeli occupation no matter what, that support the most right-wing elements of the Israeli military and right-wing elements of the Israeli government no matter what, the reason they're getting desperate and lashing out is because they're losing support, particularly among young people, among Jews in particular. The shifts in the Jewish community are huge, but the shifts in the U.S. overall are huge. I'll give you just a few examples. The best one, of course, 2008, all the organizations that support Israel uncritically all told their members, don't vote for Barack Obama. He's not good for the Jews. He's not pro-Israel enough. 78% of American Jewish voters voted for Barack Obama. The books, President Carter's book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid, the Walt Mearsheimer book on the Jewish lobby, I have my differences with all those books. It doesn't matter. They broke taboos. The rise of J Street, the pro-Israel, pro-peace lobby. I have my problems with them too. It doesn't matter. They're breaking taboos. They would never have existed 5 years ago. The lead writer for the Washington Post writes an article, not an op-ed, a news article, without a moment's, as if it's nothing unusual, that's titled something like, Time to Revisit Aid to Israel. Maybe it's wrong. Really? That's like mainstream opinion now in the Washington Post? This is what is happening all over the country all the time now. If you monitor it, you're seeing incredible changes. So this whole movement of BDS, the movement of challenging U.S. aid to Israel, could not come at a better time because we've got public opinion with us. We have to reach new people. We have to provide the education and the background on human rights that people need. And this is a winning issue in a way that it has never been before. Thank you.